Hey guys, I'm Dr. John Peterson coming at you from Salt Lake City. And I just wanted to, I've had my Form Labs Form 2 for about 2 or 3 months, and I wanted to give you a couple of the things that I learned these past couple months in using it. Just a few quick tips for you. Some things that you might think that are very obvious, but I didn't figure them out until a couple prints in. So might be worth somebody's time. And I've got about 5 or 6 quick tips for you. So we'll get right into it. So one thing I learned was that the wiper blade that goes back and forth, I thought that you had to kind of clean that, rinse it off when you were going to be switching the materials, because right now I'm using 3 different materials for different things: surgical guides and models, and then also for night guards. Those are 3 different materials, and I thought that I had to clean up this wiper blade after each one. But then I was noticing that on the resin tray, the cover has that little notch that goes on the outside. I don't know why I didn't see that before, but you can just keep the wiper blade right in there and then put the cover over the top, which is probably kind of a duh thing for most of you, but for me, I don't know, none of this has been very intuitive. It's all new. So I'm going to remove this cover and then just remove the tray and then put the cover over the top with the wiper blade still in it. It makes it super easy. Okay, so I removed the cover real quick. I removed the tray, and then here's the cover. And then make sure you line it up to where that's just gonna go right over the top. I didn't do that, as you can see with this last one. And I cracked it just a little bit. I'm hoping that's not that big a deal. I don't think it's exposing any of the resin. And then just snap down the lid and you're good to go. And that just goes right over the top. You don't even have to worry about the wiper blade, which is good because trying to clean that thing is a beast. Now you probably only need to make this mistake once. That's all I needed to make it. But when you're doing your surgical guide, make sure that the supports that need to be generated, make sure that you have those attached to the base and not the intaglio surface, the inside of it. Because with all of those supports in there, I don't know, probably have a hard time getting that to fit like you want it. So just make sure. It just was one of those things. This was my first one printing and I wasn't thinking about it, but you want to make sure that those supports go on the base and not on the inside. And that's true with the dental models too. You want to make sure that they're on the base and not on the teeth. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but still, when you want to make it, if you're in a rush, sometimes those are easy things to overlook. But so in dealing with these resin tanks, just noticing that sometimes this bottom part gets gunked up a little bit. You can see that's kind of resin that's just kind of hanging there. And I have had times where I've waited a while. I think maybe the way it's supposed to work is that when it heats up, it's supposed to just heat that up to make it more liquidy, and then it will drop down. But I've had prints fail because it says that they couldn't get any more resin out of this. So I have had success in wiping that off and then putting it back in. I know that the Form Labs tells you that you're not supposed to mess with that too much, but I think wiping it off is okay. I wouldn't take a knife to it or anything like that necessarily before calling them. The other thing that I've had to do, because I was in a bind and just couldn't wait anymore, is just pushing on that lid and then pouring some into the tank. Now, one thing that you need to be aware of, and I didn't realize until after I poured it in, you don't want to pour too much above that top line. The reason that line is there, and I realized it right away, is that when the build platform came down and kind of squished into the material, if you've got too much in there, it's going to start flowing off the sides and creating, I would imagine, a big mess. And I think I got pretty close to that happening to me because I was above the line a little bit. So you want to be aware of that. That's something I'm sure you don't want to do. I don't know if the sensors will tell if it's too far above the line. That I'm not sure. But I wouldn't take that chance and be left with a huge mess, because it would kind of get on that screen where the laser's at, and you don't want to mess with that, I don't think. So this is one thing I just noticed. I just got done with this surgical guide, and I've been wondering if there was a way to just kind of prop it up, but I never tried it until now. There's this little way that you can kind of prop it up off to the side. Now, you guys are all probably thinking, yeah, of course there is. How come you didn't know that? But I didn't. I've done probably 10 prints now and just now discovered that. So there's bound to be somebody else that didn't know about that either. But it's very nice just to allow some of the alcohol to drain out before you pick that up. So another tip, if it's useful or not, that's up to you. Okay, so my last tip is be careful which UV light you get. I got this one because it had more features. I think actually it had a higher wattage, which is the main reason I got it. But be careful with the UV light that has the smart technology, smart features, because what I ended up noticing is that you can't just plug it in and let it run. This one had an automatic shut off. I think the longest I could get it to go is 100 seconds. And when we're trying to bake these printed things like the surgical guides, we don't want to have to restart it like 60 times. So that's just not going to work. And so I ended up having to restructure it. I took the top off. I actually had to kind of pry off the top because I couldn't find all the screws. One of the screws was actually underneath this metal piece right here that I had to pry off and then take off all of the screws. And then once I got underneath, there was actually a circuit board with a timer on here. It looked like that, and with these buttons all connected, but I basically just took those out and bypassed it right to where you plug it in. And so when you plug it in, it turns on now. When you unplug it, it turns it off. That's really all I needed to do. But just get one that kind of doesn't have the smart features. There was one recommended by Dr. August de Oliveira, and I think it was called like You Sexy Macaron or something like that, on Amazon. So if anything that looks like that, that's the one that he recommended. So that's the one that I probably should have tried buying, but I wanted to get this one instead because of the higher wattage. But didn't turn out that great. So those are just a couple tips for you. Some of them, like I said, might be very obvious, but it might help somebody that's new, just getting into it. Sometimes it's overwhelming getting into 3D printing. This is completely new to me, and so there was a lot of things where it was all new. And so in that scenario, sometimes things that should be obvious aren't so obvious. So hope you liked this video. If you did, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my page.